An investment's returns and risks are fundamentally measured by measures of the mean and then of dispersion. What we're going to see is that we're going to use three measures. Average returns, and we have two alternatives that we're going to use in this class. Arithmetic average and the geometric mean. I personally prefer the geometric mean, but this is about the only place you'll see it used. But what it does is it takes, if you have an investment dollar, $1 invested at the beginning of the period, it gives the rate over the average rate over the remaining periods that will result in the ending value. Variation, we measure that by the standard deviation or variation. Both measure the same thing. And then there's one other measure that we're very concerned about, and that's the correlation coefficient. And that is between two assets, two variables, and it tells how closely they move with one another. For the mean, we'll use the arithmetic average, and we've used this a number of times before, or you've used this a number of times before. This is the average, or this is the way it's calculated, and it's the most common one that you will see reported. In fact, it's the only one you'll usually see reported. We are going to also use the geometric mean, which is the average. Given that you make an investment today, it gives the average return over the next n periods. Here, R1 is the return for period 1, R2 is the period return for period 2, Rn is the return for period n, and we discount that, or we multiply those together, then take them to the reciprocal of the number of periods, subtract 1 to come up with the geometric mean. A little bit of intuition for that can be seen by reworking that formula. And here, if you look at that, you took $1 at the beginning of the period. You get return 1 at the first period, return 2 at the second period, return n at the end period. This is the average return. The arithmetic mean and the geometric mean will diverge from one another, and they will diverge more the more risky the asset and the more negative the returns that happen to be on the asset series. So remember that, and we'll talk about that again. Standard deviation you see listed there. The variance is without the square root. Standard formula for measuring standard deviation. And as always, investors prefer higher returns and lower risk. Unfortunately, those two tend to move together. Finally, the correlation coefficient. And this measures how assets move together over time. Correlation coefficient can range from -1 to 1. 1 means they move in lockstep with each other, up, down, up, down. 0 means there's no discernible pattern, and -1 means that they move in opposite directions from one another. In finance, we prefer to have assets with correlation coefficients closer to -1. The further away we can get from 1, the more diversification benefits that we can get from the asset. That's the method for measuring investment returns and risk. Means, arithmetic, geometric, variance, and correlation coefficient.